CIA. Now, I asked the crew to put together a timeline, and quite frankly, Marco's put together, our great graphics guy, put one together bigger than I would have even done, but still small if you go through all the evidence. I mean, it would take hours to go through the connections with Al-Qaeda and the CIA and Israeli and British and Pakistani intelligence, as well as Saudi Arabian, which are all, quote, allies in the fight against terror. It's not saying there aren't real Muslim terrorists or groups, or Hezbollah out of Iran that launches some attacks. That's Shiite, separate from the Saudi Arabian Al-Qaeda group. But our media knows, the public doesn't pay attention, so they say Saudi Arabia, is an Al-Qaeda, but Iran is, when they're Shiite, the arch enemies of the group. But if you look at the history of Al-Qaeda, who set it up, Zbigniew Brzezinski's written 2 books about it, the National Security Advisor in '79. And if you look at this whole process of the underwear bomber being put on the plane by the government on record, and Al-Qaeda being used against the Serbs, the Russians, being brought into Libya, it's amazing. So we'll start going to this timeline here while I narrate it. Early on, Hitler helped set up the first Muslim brigades, and then the West, when they took over the Middle East after World War II, they just took control of those. But it was reported by London Guardian, Jones Report, many other publications in the last decade that Osama bin Laden met with National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski when he was admittedly the main liaison to the Mujahideen for the United States. Other governments had other liaisons, and General Hamid Gul, who headed up Pakistani intelligence, he talked about meeting bin Laden in some of those operations on my radio show. So that's the first part of the timeline. Right there, the fact that Al-Qaeda is set up by the CIA, and Al-Qaeda means the CIA base. There's another one, that's by the former top secretary in the British government, Robin Cook, who resigned and died shortly after, saying the lies about WMDs were evil. He said throughout the 1980s, Osama bin Laden was armed by the CIA and funded by the Saudis to wage jihad against the Russian occupiers of Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda literally means the database, was originally the computer file for thousands of mujahideen. He was killed by this. Robin Cook was off for bringing this out, who were recruited and trained with the help of the CIA to defeat the Russians. Inexplicably, and with disastrous consequences, it never appears to have occurred to Washington that once Russia was out of the way, bin Laden's organization would turn its attention to the West. Well, it was done so they could take our liberties here and launch the wars. When you're a global banking cartel and want to take America's rights, give trillions to yourself in no-bid contracts and invade all these countries, you stage an attack. Kids understand Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Palpatine attacks himself to take control. Hitler blows up his own Reichstag. Our own government attacks its own ships to blame it on North Vietnam. So we've got that report. Here's another one. Alleged trainer of 9/11 hijackers, a CIA informant. So was the 7/7 boss. Turned out to be MI6, British intelligence. There's just countless examples of this. And then shifting gears more into the future. Remember, Kurt Haskell came on our show first and said he saw the government get the underwear bomber on the plane 2 Christmases ago, almost 2 years ago. And then later on C-SPAN, the government's, the Undersecretary of State had to admit, yeah, they were ordered to get him on the plane by the CIA, basically. The State Department did indeed put Muttalib on the plane at the behest of an unnamed U.S. agency. Later, we turned out to be CIA. And then, of course, the CIA tells Congress Al-Qaeda to attack in 3 to 6 months. CIA boss Leon Panetta told Congress today that homegrown extremists working with Al-Qaeda, we'll cover that next, will strike America within 3 to 6 months. That didn't happen. The recruits will be clean and have no trace to phantom terrorist organizations, according to Panetta and other intelligence groups. That means cut out black ops who will then blame a patsy that looks similar to them. That's how the standard paradigm works. And then, of course, we were told the biggest story of 2011, voted by Newsweek and others, is the killing of Osama bin Laden, even though they released fake photos and claimed they buried him at sea, even though they claimed they had videos while Obama watched him being killed. Turned out that was fake. All of it was completely fake and has been proven to be a manifest fraud. And I've had high-level CIA people contact me off record and say, yes, it's completely fake. Continuing, Iran has now been accused of Al-Qaeda's secret deal by U.S. officials, And they've had a federal judge claim that 9/11 was carried out by Iran. Well, wait, I thought it was Iraq that turned out it was a fraud. Or never look at Saudi Arabia with 15 of the 20 hijackers or 15 of the 19. No, it's Iran, and we've got to attack them. And they just got caught with that whole fake report of the used car salesman trying to attack the Saudi embassy in D.C. Just more manufactured garbage. But something they hope you don't remember is that Anwar al-Awlaki, it was in Fox News last year, and InfoWars also reported on it, radical U.S.-born cleric Anwar al-Awlaki killed. They claim that they killed him, and I predicted that would happen just a few months after it came out. Show the next slide, please. That Fox News, no, it's the middle one right there. Yeah, it's fine. Leave all this in. It's fine. Exclusive. Al-Qaeda leader died at the Pentagon just months after 9/11 with the Secretary of the Army. While he was on the news as number 3 in Al-Qaeda most wanted, there he is. And it turns out he runs the underwear bomber, the Times Square, Major Hassan, these useful idiots. He actually works for the globalists and is setting all of this up. Good job, guys, showing that information. And then, of course, we have this final article. Thanks to Obama, the Al-Qaeda flag is now flying high and proud over Libya. And the Daily Mail reported on that. We have links in this American Dream article. You can follow those links. And Al-Qaeda has been put in charge there, and now they're sending Al-Qaeda into Syria. Al-Qaeda is the secret globalist cutout black side, dark side army, black op army that they use. So let's back it up to the front because it looks a lot better like Marcos originally made it, and play that whole timeline from front to back as I close things out here. So again, Al-Qaeda, the continued army of the New World Order, taking action. Here's another one. Free Syria Army, now led by NATO Libyan Al-Qaeda commander. That's also being reported. So this is where we stand. They have these manufactured armies. And when a good old boy says, we've got to have the army on the streets to fight Al-Qaeda, ask him why in all the manuals it's about conservatives, libertarians, gun owners, people that support freedom and the Constitution, Ron Paul supporters. Ask him why none of it has to do with Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is just the backdrop, so the criminal banks that run our military and our government have a pretext to use that system against the American people. That's what's going on. That's what's happening, and that's what we face as a society. And I know we're heavy on news, heavy on information here. I'm not some idiot reading off a teleprompter or some info babe acting like I'm in love with you looking at the camera that you think is looking in your eyes. I'm a real person who studies this and understands it, and I want to turn it around because I want to be free, and I want my children to be free. We're going to go to break. We're going to come back with our guest, who I was telling him, don't go public with your name. And he said, no, now's the time to do it. And he works for the Department of Defense as a federal employee in Space Command, you name it. So that is coming up after this break, dealing with the fact that in these FEMA documents, not only does the military run the camps, they're the blue guys, the good guys, the American people are the red. Al-Qaeda is listed as red, and the government listed as blue. Same thing in Afghanistan with the Taliban. We've always known this. I've been to the drills and seen it, but this is the public force structure from official government websites. This is the plan, hidden in plain view. This is extremely newsworthy.